They were already laughing before she stepped into the training circle, low, mocking chuckles that rolled across the dust like thunder before a storm. The instructor stood in the center, towering, muscular, radiating the kind of confidence that had been built from years of combat and praise. And opposite him stood Myra Dalton, smaller, quieter, her shoulders tense. Her heart pounding loud enough she swore the whole base could hear it. Everyone assumed she couldn't win. Even the instructor, especially the instructor. But Myra wasn't afraid of losing. She was afraid of becoming invisible again. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you were watching from. I love knowing who's listening. The sun hung low, staining the sky with streaks of amber as the recruits formed a circle around the sparring zone. Dust floated lazily in the air, catching the fading light. Myra's boots sank slightly into the soft ground, and she steadied her breath. Every part of her felt exposed, her trembling fingers, her dry throat, the shame lingering from a lifetime of being underestimated. The instructor smirked as he cracked his knuckles. "Dalton," he said loudly enough for the crowd to hear, "this isn't a therapy session. This is combat training. You can back out if you're scared." Myra lifted her chin. "I'm not scared." It wasn't entirely true. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of what failing in front of everyone would confirm that she didn't belong. That the whispers about her being too soft, too gentle, too breakable were right. A ripple of murmurs spread through the observers. Some pitied her. Some looked bored. Others looked hungry for entertainment. But somewhere behind the crowd, Myra caught sight of someone she thought she'd never see again, Captain Elias Rourke. The man who once trained her in a different life. The man she once loved quietly and hopelessly. He watched her with an unreadable expression. She thought she'd never see him again. She was wrong. The instructor moved first, quick, heavy steps, a predator confident in the outcome. Myra braced herself, lifting her hands exactly as she had practiced hundreds of times alone in the dark. But practice and performance were different worlds, and fear crept up her spine like ice. "You're too slow," the instructor barked, feinting a strike that sent Myra stumbling backward. Laughter rippled across the circle. Elation hit her harder than the shove. For a moment, she considered stepping out, just walking away, letting them win. But then she heard one of the recruits whisper, "She's wasting our time." Another added, "Why do they even let people like her try?" And something inside Myra snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. She closed her eyes, letting her breath settle into the deep, steady rhythm Captain Rourke once taught her. She remembered his words. Strength isn't about overpowering someone. It's about outlasting the version of yourself that keeps giving up. When she opened her eyes again, she wasn't trembling anymore. The instructor lunged again, expecting her to fall. Instead, Myra stepped sideways with a grace that made the crowd gasp. She redirected his arm, using his momentum, sending him stumbling past her. It wasn't enough to neutralize him, but it was enough to silence them. Dust rose around them as the instructor turned, now annoyed. Lucky move, but it wasn't luck. It was discipline. It was memory. It was pain transformed into skill. The next attack came faster, harder. Myra deflected, pivoted, ducked. She began moving like a whisper of wind, quiet but unavoidable. Murmurs grew louder, changing tone, all replacing mockery. Curiosity replacing pity. Then, the instructor made his mistake. His frustration boiled over, clouding his technique. He swung wide, sloppy, emotional, and Myra saw the opening. She stepped in, locked his wrist, twisted, and pinned him to the ground with a precision so fast the crowd couldn't track it. The instructor's face hit the dust, his arm locked uselessly behind him. Gasps erupted like an explosion around the circle. Someone shouted, "She neutralized him." Another cried, "How did she do that?" And Captain Rourke. He smiled. Myra released the instructor and stepped back. He rose slowly, rubbing his wrist, disbelief clouding his features. This wasn't humiliation she saw in his eyes. It was respect fighting its way to the surface. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Myra Dalton," he said quietly, "where did you learn that?" She swallowed hard, unsure how much truth to reveal. "From someone who believed I could be more than what others saw." The crowd fell silent. The instructor nodded once, a gesture heavy with sincerity. "Then teach me," he said. "Teach all of us." A spark of warmth bloomed in Mira's chest, unexpected and overwhelming. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want praise. She wanted to belong, and now, maybe she finally could. Captain Rourke stepped forward from the circle, eyes soft. "You proved something today," he said. She shook her head. "No, they just finally saw what I've been fighting to believe." A wave of applause broke out, rolling through the recruits like thunder. Mira felt her throat tighten with emotion as she looked around at the faces that once doubted her, now lit with admiration, gratitude, and awe. In the fading light, surrounded by dust and breathless voices, she finally felt seen. Because strength isn't loud, it's persistent, and it shows itself when the world stops watching. Long after the circle dispersed, the memory of that moment lingered in the air like dust in sunlight, a quiet reminder that even the underestimated can reshape an entire room. Thank you for listening to this story on Whispered Words. If it touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Every click helps these stories reach someone who needs them today.